All good. Guppy and Jason Bradley. You need to watch this Euro filth. This is the stuff that gets you off. Zombie Holocaust. Dr. Butcher, MD. If you're into cheap Italian during that cannibal era, the Fulci's zombie Gates of Hell era. We got it somewhere on VHS. But I had Happy Birthday to Me on VHS. This is one of my favorite films ever. I don't know. Something about this movie. Something about the late 70s, early 80s slashers. The Prowler, Pieces. Friday 13th. Even Graduation Day. There's another killer slasher film. I do believe Troma put it up on YouTube, so you can check it out on YouTube. But this one kind of opens up. It's kind of destroyed though. But it's all I got. It's all I got. It's a great one. Little Blood Beach. It's kind of a terrible movie, but something about that cover. Oh yeah. What's up tonight, everybody? And did you even know that there was a Slumber Party Massacre 3? Are you aware of the Slumber Party Massacre? Gotta throw this one in there too. This is the re-release with from Massacre Video. So I ended up picking up 2 copies, one that I could open and watch, and another one still sealed. Ooh. But yeah, there's a terrible shot on video. That's the best part of the movie. So if you wanna try it, I would recommend it, but it's during that whole time where early 80s, people started using their video cameras to make the movies. So there was one that came out. It's not that bad of a movie, really. It's just the video camera is what kills you, right? So there's this one called The Ripper, and Tom Savini, he has a little cameo in it. Whether or not he did the effects in it, we're not sure. I mean, we are sure, but are we sure? But yeah, there's another shot on video classic, The Ripper. There's right there. There's a good neck slice. Pull it right back. cool about this one, so if I would have got this video then, I could have filled out the United video form and filled it out, and I could have won a trip to London. That John Carpenter box set is really good. Even his new stuff. I unfortunately did not go see John Carpenter when he came around to do his scores. That was pretty much, I had to pick between Goblin and John Carpenter. And I love John Carpenter, but I love Goblin even more. Way more. And I should have went to John Carpenter, because when's he gonna do that again? Right? So anyway. Had to put on some soundtrack stuff. But also too, today I had to change the pace a little bit. I don't know if anybody out there is into some Big Daddy Kane. Phil Pattison, my rabid dog guy, the original rabid dog guy, he ended up going and said it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. But then we changed the pace and go into some Big Daddy Kane, right? That's exactly what we did. And listen to Italian disco. I like Italian soundtracks. So yeah, we're gonna be hanging out and doing our thing with our buddy, Mr. Lee Harrison. We're gonna try part 2 here. There he is. What's up, Lee? Hold on a sec here. Let's get this going here. We're back. Right on. How are you, my friend?
Good, good. How we doing?
Welcome back. Welcome back. Doing really well. Doing really well. It's actually my lady's birthday today.
Awesome, man. Cool. Happy birthday.
Happy 40th, Leslie. Yeah. Right on. So how's it going? I'm sorry about, like I mentioned, everything got kind of cut out last time, but let's just continue where we were going with all this.
Yep, figure out where we were on. I kind of
totally.
don't know where we got off or what happened there, but
hey, we're just trying this internet thing out. That's what's going on. I had too much shit going on. That was the problem.
you got it worked out now?
Everything is working perfect now.
Excellent.
Yeah, the last 2 interviews we had went flawless. So you are good. So, okay, so let's go back a little bit. We were talking about how you ended up getting picked up by Nuclear Blast at the time.
Yeah.
And recording Imperial Doom.
Yeah, so that would have been, let's see, we'll kind of recap a little bit. August 90 we formed. November 90 we did our first show with Massacre. December 90 we did the Core Infinity demo. January of 91 we ended up sending it out to Roadrunner, Nuclear Blast, blah, 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 all the fanzines. Pretty much just still writing. I think January we were writing Final Cremation. That was the song we were working on.
Yep.
And pretty much from January to June, we finished kind of the songs that weren't on the demo. Imperial Doom, Ceremonial Void, Ceremonial was the last song written, actually. What was the other ones? Darkest Dream. And, I don't know. Whatever.
It was a while ago.
We finished the album, and then, so June we went in and we did the drums and bass of 91. And then we took like a month and a half, 2 months between doing the guitars, vocals, kind of everything else. And then we did I think we spent 3 days mixing it with Jim Morris. And Van Erp, the bass player, went home. So he wasn't there. So when we brought the tape back, he didn't think the bass was loud enough. And there were some small minor things that, like the toms not being loud enough, some things like that. So more or less he talked me into, talking Nuclear Blast into remixing the album. And then, I don't know, it was kind of a funny thing just because we ended up doing 3 days of mixing in one day. Jim Morris kind of got upset because, he was told that, we were just going to be raising the snare a little bit. And me being a dumb kid, I had this list of changes, for every song, I had, every little possible thing that I could come up with listed on a piece of paper. So that kind of threw him for a loop. And, we ended up getting it done, but it was one of those things where when you're in Morris Sound, you got the killer speakers, and you're mixing to those speakers. I'm coming off the street, you're coming from home or whatever, not used to listening to it sounds great in Morris. We made it sound perfect in Morris Sound, but when you take that and you put it on different stereos and, listen to it on different things, it's just not the same. So that's kind of pretty much what happened. We got, I knew within 5 minutes of listening to it on a different stereo that we made a huge mistake. But that was kind of, that's one of the trial and errors of being young and not knowing, still learning what you're doing as far as big studios and stuff. Because that was, I'd done some demo, I did the Malevolent demo, we did the Monstrosity demo, but that was a 16-track, 1-inch tape, smaller studio. It was still, it wasn't horrible, but, Morris Sound was a huge step up and just, certain life experiences that, you need from, continuously working in a studio, that you would pick up. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, the album suffered. So we were never really happy with Imperial Doom. I know a lot of people, that's their favorite album and this and that.
Yeah.
But to me, the guitars are buried, snare drum's way too loud. But we were blast beat happy at the time. We were just crazy about the blast beat, hearing that snare jacked up. And so it was we were loving it in the studio, and unfortunately in the overall picture, if the drums are too loud, guitars are buried, certain parts, the drums just completely bury the riff, you can't even hear the riffs. So that was one thing about that album that we were kind of unhappy with and forced to live with, unfortunately. And so the second album was a lot better when, 6 years later, whenever it was, 4 years later, definitely more of a concerted effort to have the guitars heard loud and proud, and it's just one of those learning things where even on Dark Purity, kind of with Millennium, the guitars were louder, but the drums, they were definitely more natural sounding drums, but they weren't quite as powerful. Whereas on the third album, we were able to get the combination of having the powerful drums and the guitars heard really loud and, kind of making an overall mix that, we were happy with. The third album was kind of where, that was the first production where I was fully happy with it.
Sweet. Honestly, though, pretty much, you say that Imperial Doom to you is not an album that you like to listen to or whatever, but just
the songs are great.
Songs are totally.
I spent a lot of work on the songs. Those lyrics, I'm pretty proud of those lyrics because I just, I would spend, we'd be off of, at the time, me and Van Erp, we did this job. We worked for a place called Picture Perfect Painting and we would take these door flyers around to these rich neighborhoods in Coral Springs and Fort Lauderdale, and we'd, basically trying to like solicit estimates on, painting houses and pressure washing, that kind of thing. But, as I'm walking through these neighborhoods, I'm worrying about, in my head, I'm thinking about Horror Infinity and, what I'm going to do for that third line of the chorus or whatever,
Right.
My head was totally, someplace else. I mean, and it was, I just remember going through those neighborhoods and thinking, we're just totally in a different place mentally.
No, for sure, but especially at that time too. How old were you when you guys were pretty much working on Imperial Doom?
20, 21.
Right. So at that age, man, I mean, when I first started my band, I mean, playing live for the first time was like the craziest thing ever, right? So just to think that at 2021, you're signed to Nuclear Blast and it's already steamrolling, so of course your head's like, yeah, we're kind of getting there.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of the boom of death metal. Obituary was already out. Deicide were just going to be coming out with their record. Malevolent, I had been a part of that, getting them signed, helping get them signed. It was kind of right there to right before when the album came out or was recorded. So, the boom of death metal was hitting for sure at that time. And so, it was kind of a whirlwind, but at the same time, I knew we had a lot to prove too, and there were certain things that were going on that we wanted to kind of do differently and kind of combine and make even better, because, we like thrash metal and all that stuff too, but death metal was kind of the next step and the next, more intense, more, just more of everything pretty much.
Totally.
And just that next level of everything and more aggressive, more extreme, whatever the term is of the week,
And the thing with that album too, especially like Monstrosity compared to, everything else that was coming out, you had your blast beats kind of chop up a little bit. It wasn't always just straight blast for, a 4 bars or whatever. You'd blast for a couple bars, do a roll, blast again with that, do a roll, blast again. Like, you didn't just continuously just blast like a lot of bands were doing at that time too.
We wanted to mix it up, and it was kind of like I said before, we were friends with Cynic, and they kind of had a little more technicality going on, which we kind of dug that, but we also dug the more brutal stuff too that was going on, and kind of combining that, so it was like a mixture of those two elements basically. The analogy is steak and cheese, can't have one without the other. So we would have kind of the more easy parts, basic parts that your average guy that's not a musician can get into. And then you'd have your steak, which is your crazy, more technical parts that the musicians could fall in with,
Yeah.
So that was all kind of the formula, was the steak and cheese and combining that,
Yeah, totally. No, totally. So you did one album for Nuclear Blast, and then what happened after that?
Well, we went to Europe. Basically, the two guys at Nuclear Blast, the main guy's named Marcus Steiger. He's the owner and president. And the number 2 guy was a guy named Michael Tringer. And he was kind of our point guy. He was the guy that we dealt with the most. And it was kind of one of those things, too, I'm sure, was you tell them that. And then, good cop, bad cop type thing, where they could throw it off on each other. But, whatever. They were both pretty cool at the time, and everything went good. Michael was a cool dude. He ended up playing a part later in our career with Metal Blade and all that. That's why I bring him up. Unfortunately, he passed away now, so he's not around. But he was a big supporter of the band. He really believed in us, probably more than Marcus Steiger did even. And, he was the guy we were talking to, and he got us the tour with Pestilence that we did in '92. We did a European tour, kind of briefly talked about that last week, which was big for us. But, it's always one of those things where when you do these tours, you think, it's going to blow up now, this is going to be our, people are going to seeing it's going to lead to all these tours and more tours and all this stuff. And in America, things hadn't really picked up yet. It was just kind of the album had come out, but there had been no touring. We actually did no real touring for Imperial Doom in America. So we just did that European tour. That was kind of it, pretty much. And long story longer, we spent 14 grand on the album, spent 14 grand on the tour, and we sold like around 36,000 copies is what they were telling us, and
wow.
The more or less the roundabout deal was $1 an album, kind of give or take, was kind of what we were supposed to get. So in our mind, we were due, we had satisfied recouping our advances as far as the album and the touring. Well, Nuclear Blast didn't agree with that. They felt that, they were trying to say that we owed them money, blah, blah, blah. And, by going by their own accounting, we didn't agree with it, It wasn't even a case that we thought they were, messing with the numbers or anything. It was just a case of going off of their royalty statements and stuff. We felt that we were owed money. And that didn't even get into the whole publishing thing, where publishing ends up being like a separate thing.
Yep.
But publishing is kind of where we got hung up. Long story longer, we ended up, breaking off with Nuclear Blast. And in my mind, we can, we'll go to Century Media, or, we'll go, we'll call Earache, or we'll call, somebody, there's other labels out there, What I didn't realize at the time is that they're thick as thieves, and they're not going to, like, just jump out and steal another label's band, and they're, what I mean? It's not that easy,
Totally.
know. And then also at the same time, the 95, 96 era, death metal had kind of fallen as far as pop, like the whole trend, so to speak, kind of fell out.
Yep.
And it wasn't as big as it once was. And actually, Borvoy, the guy at Blabbermouth, I had dealt with him with Roadrunner, when we were trying to get originally signed, before the demo. And by the time 95 rolled around, he was working for Century Media. So I was like talking to him and sending him the demo. Like we ended up doing the Slaves and Masters demo in 94 with the idea that we'll send, that'll be new material for these labels to sign us from. It won't be just the album that they've heard, they can hear where we're actually trying to go, where we're headed next.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to Borvoy from Blabbermouth, who, like I said, he was at Century Media at the time, and he said it doesn't matter, you can have the best death metal band in the world, you can have the best musicians, you can have the best songs, you can have the best whatever, but right now labels are not signing death metal because that's just not what's selling, So it's like, you can do blast beats till you're blue in the face, and you can do this and that, and sure, it's kind of kept going anyway, obviously we didn't listen, and the times move on and whatever, new styles of music come and go and this and that. But, so whatever, we didn't get signed to Century Media, and we talked with Pavement Records for a minute, and their deal was just way too low for us, it just didn't make sense, we could have, especially after, the relapse thing where they didn't do any advertising for Nuclear Blast America, and at least for us, no interviews, nothing, so it was like, for us, it was just,
right.
Just made sense, kind of, that's kind of how I came up with the idea of doing Conquest music eventually. It just made more sense, especially in America, in Europe, it's harder to do, I can't be over there to do all the promotion and all that stuff, so it just made sense, especially in America, to do Conquest music, and that's how I started my label. And so we did the second record under Conquest, that was the first one, and then we ended up signing Vader for their second album, Deep Profundus. We released that album under Conquest Music, and part of the deal under that, we was with this label called System Shock, and part of the deal was they had another band called Dark Side, who were an Austrian band, and cool guys, but they were unknown, and it was kind of like a part of the deal of Vader, is you take Dark Side, and so I released those three albums, Millennium, Deep Profundus from Vader, and Dark Side in America. And then kind of by the time, like at first it really didn't work out that way, but eventually in the end we worked things out with Nuclear Blast as far as the royalties and all the BS about Imperial Doom, to where like, okay, well, they were going to take the second album, Millennium, for Europe, and then I would keep it in America. And that's pretty much what happened. Unfortunately, you know, and I don't know, I won't say it's on purpose or whatever, but the long and short of it was that basically they put the album out and just sat on it, you know, they didn't really promote it. They had kind of moved on to whatever they were doing with their label, and they put it out just, you know, I don't know, I won't say they hurt, you know, purposely hurt us, but let's just say they didn't do me a huge favor, you know.
Yep.
So the second album came out through them, and then we did our first U.S. tour after that with Dying Fetus and Cataclysm. Cataclysm headlined, and we were in the middle of Dying Fetus. That was their first tour, and so it was cool. We went out to California and back, ran through Texas. And that was just, you know, my red and white van, the same van that I had, you know, when I was 18. We toured in that. We built a little bunk in the back where we had all the equipment underneath, and we could kind of lay out and stretch on top.
Sweet.
And then not too long after that, we did a tour with Broken Hope and Vader, and that was a big tour. It was like 30 shows in America.
Wow.
You know, a little more high-profile tour. And that was a case of, you know, we paid for Vader to come over with plane tickets and invested in merchandise and all that kind of thing for them. And so it was a very expensive undertaking at the time. But it was what was going on. And then so we did those two U.S. tours. Kind of, because it's funny because, you know, on the Imperial Doom, in Europe was more of the bigger deal. And then on the second album, U.S. was kind of a bigger deal. And then kind of like at the end of the tour, you know, touring cycle or whatever, the album cycle, I guess you'd say, we finally got to Europe for Millennium, the second album. So pretty much we had already recorded the drums and bass, or drums and guitars for the third album when we went over to Europe to tour for the second album. So it's kind of happened a few times actually, where it's like the timing is just never there. You know, it's not like bigger bands or whatever that would be like, you know, the album comes out, you're immediately on tour, you go to Europe, you know, it's one of those things.
Totally. So you didn't get discouraged, obviously, after Nuclear Blast and stuff, and then the second album, you just, yeah, it's all good. I gotta get a beer. Look at that timing. So you obviously didn't get discouraged throughout the second and third album, and like you said, you ended up going out on tour with Broken Hope and Vader. Did that kind of like just keep the momentum going and you guys pumped again?
Well, I'm pretty much a lifer anyway, you know what I mean? I'm pretty dedicated. I wasn't going anywhere, you know.
Well, especially having an album out on Nuclear Blast. I mean, right after that, you would guaranteed just be pumped regardless, because, you know, you're on one of the big metal labels back in the day, and the fact that you had an album shouldn't slow you down regardless, right?
You know, at the same time, though, we weren't totally happy with the album, so we had more stuff to prove, you know. We weren't like 100% happy with that stuff, you know, the first album, so with the second and third album, we had more to prove. And so it was a case of wanting to get that, you know, get something we could really be proud of.
Yeah. So did you end up writing most of the material on the second and third album?
It was, you know, it's like 50-50. It's me and you, like I was explaining last week, it's kind of me and the guitar player, whoever that happens to be, ends up with, like, on Imperial Doom, like I was telling you how I was plucking riffs from my submission demo, my one-man thrash band, like a lot of, you know, Burden of Evil, a lot of those riffs are from that. Dense Malignancy, that whole front half is from my submission demo. So then with Millennium, song like Storm Winds, that was something that I did on my own, pretty much just, you know, except for like one rip, it's all mine. Seas of Change, that was me and John Rubin. But let's think, even Fatal Millennium, where that was Jason Morgan, the guy we got from Tennessee. He wrote about, like, he was when he joined the band, he upped the technical game big time, you know.
Right on.
He could play, you know, circles around pretty much anybody in the whole scene. So we kind of capitalized on that a little, you know, and went more a little. That's why Millennium's a little more technical. We just kind of went that direction. We're still had a lot of the cheese, but we're doing a lot more steak on that album, you know. And but even that like Fatal Millennium, that song, like the whole chorus, that's my riffs, and the middle section, some of those are my riffs. Dream Messiah, those are things like I would sing him the riff, you know.
Right.
Just like that, you know, and then he would go, okay, and then he'd play it, so. Kind of like that. Even the third album with Jay, you know, that I wrote with Jay Fernandez and Jason Avery, you know, it was like a case where I had like Perpetual War, where I would sing him the riff, you know, all right, and he would play the riff, and you know, so who wrote the riff? You know what I mean? Did I write the riff? Did he write the riff? You know, right. He was the one who actually played the riff, but you know, whatever, who cares?
Totally.
But that's kind of how it goes usually, like. You know, because I was doing 4-track demos and stuff like that, and we even had like one of those 8-track cassette demo recorder type of things, you know, so we were doing, I could do my own demos I didn't need anybody necessarily, you know, so I would come in with like, you know, pretty much, I wouldn't say complete songs, but like 3/4 at least, you know, of a song, and then usually me and the guitar player would finish that out. And sometimes they would have songs and we'd shape them and, you know, work them out.
Totally. So
it usually wasn't a case of just somebody would bring in a finished song and that was it. It was usually a compilation of me and the guitar player, whoever it was.
Right. But you kind of maintained the sole proprietorship to the band itself, right?
I write the lyrics, all the lyrics in the early days, and then kind of oversee everything, and you know, like you said, make it happen or whatever.
Totally.
So there's that's why there's always this, you know, kind of a continuity with all of our albums. You know, the stamp is still there even after all these years, even though the members have come and gone, and you know, several times over. It's still the same thing, you know. Plus, I keep the tuning the same. We don't like go, you know, most bands, you know, they went like, I don't know, I won't name bands, but they went from tuning to, you know, D standard, then they went next thing they're at C, and, you know, whatever, they keep going down, you know, and whereas that kind of changes the sound of the band, whereas like I've always kept it at D standard, you know, and that kind of it's still low, but it's not too low, and it's, you know, it's not high, you know, it's not E standard either.
Yep. No, totally. And throughout a lot of your albums too, you've always made it a point to have the guitar riffs almost play with the drums itself.
There's a lot of that's kind of like, even with the songs that I wrote with Malevolent, you can kind of hear that, like the you know, all that kind of riding the open E triplets and stuff like that.
Yep, and the double kick just keeps up with it too, right, every time, right?
So that's kind of one of my signatures, you know, riff writing.
Yeah, well, it's because you are a drummer and a guitarist, so you obviously just think about how fun it would be to play, you know, drums, and then on top of that, how does that fit with the guitars and yada yada, and it's pretty cool though, because and throughout all the albums, you've maintained that it's not the same, but you can tell that, oh, that's monstrosity. That's definitely a monstrosity riff right there, or whatever. And then I noticed on spiritual, spiritual apocalypse, like songs like Remnants of Divination and stuff like that. Like there is groove beyond, like it's unbelievable. That, like, I gotta say, that album, I think, kills your whole discography. I love that album, man. There is so much groove, and it just seems to blend perfectly. The guitars with the drums and everything. I don't know. That's one of my favorite albums, I gotta say. That's fucking...
Well, to go through that, with the third album, well, let's say with the second album, we had Jason Morgan, who blew up the level of technicality. With the third album, we wrote with Jake Fernandez from Brutality. And he kind of brought in that melodicism of, like, Suffering to the Conquered, where it's very melodic, and so that kind of stepped it, so we've stepped up each album, in kind of more of that direction, the guitar playing getting better, and really pushing that. So with, like, the song Angel's Venom became kind of like, it was based off, we all, even though it's Jay Fernandez's riff, me and Avery and Fernandez all sat in here and arranged that together. Okay, yeah, we're going to do it super slow here. Here we're going to beef. We're going to throw the double bass in. That'll be the chorus. And so it became more of a song structure and keeping that groove, like where it's one riff kind of played out more instead of just going riff, 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 kind of building on a theme and doing that. So Remnants is kind of based off that Angel's Venom thing where, we're focusing on a theme instead of just taking a bunch of riffs and throwing them together and jumbling them. It's more focusing on songwriting as an art itself. And that was Mark English who wrote that one. Me and Mark, I helped him on some of it, but those are mostly his riffs. And it was kind of, inspired by Angel's Venom and that thinking, that mentality of focusing on a theme and a kind of not trying to be super crazy, but keeping it like kind of like a mid-pace groove, like you said,
Yeah.
And, to some people, to like the people that aren't really death metal people, that's their favorite song, because it's kind of like it's like a gateway to what we do. And it has that theme where they, it's melodic and heavy too.
Oh my gosh, it just fucking digs. It digs hard, man. As soon as you start that, wow, man, that whole thing just keeps going. And then for 4 minutes, five minutes the song is or whatever, it just doesn't let up. And you throw in the melodic parts, but it's not too melodic. And it rings out, and like, wow, man, I gotta say, like, that song, when I first heard that song, I must have played it at least 15, 20 times that day I heard it, and because I was just like, wow, a slow song that finally just, like, encompasses what I want to hear in a death metal song with, I'm not huge on melodic parts and all that, I'm not big on mellow death and all that kind of stuff. But when you throw it in there once in a while, just to give it that ring and that epic parts, like, wow, like that's great, man. Like that whole album, just front to back, is fantastic. Right on. So why did it take you guys so long in between albums, I guess?
Our average is usually 4 years.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we're pretty much for the first 2 years, it takes, put everything into making an album. So like the 6 months to a year after the album, or even the 2 years, we're touring and we're just coming off making it, after putting so much work into it. It's like, actually take a breath, So the 2 years after recording the album, we're worried about promoting it, we're worried about getting it out there, touring off it, doing all that. So we're not exactly thinking about the next record,
Of course.
Right then. Usually the third year is about when we're starting to work on, like, really writing the songs, and then the fourth year is actually recording the next album. It's kind of how it's been kind of how it works works out.
Yeah.
Because it's never an easy thing, I mean, because we don't have, it's not like, even though we had some huge labels behind us, they're not exactly like, they're not helping in that department, it's not like, so there's a lot of stuff that we have to do on our own, and it just, because of our limited, finances or whatever, it just takes a little bit longer than other bands.
Yep.
That's kind of the usual. It has been 4 years from like on the first, 4 or 5 album. And then this last album, it took us 11 years. And it's weird because, even with the other albums, there was lineup changes and stuff like that kind of came into play. So we were still able to get it to the 4 years, but we were the same lineup pretty much. And it took us 11 years. So I don't know. Same thing where we toured off Spiritual Apocalypse for a number of years and did all that. And I would say, 2011, we made a conscious effort to take the band off the road, not just keep touring and touring and touring. And then me and Mark wrote a majority of the material here in the band room. And then we kind of, we would do demos of it, and just time went on. I don't really even know, And it was about 2015, 2016 maybe. We did the drums. And then we had already recorded the guitars, but he went back and redid all the guitars, so that took another whole, length of time. Then we had the issue with, we had Joni come over and do the bass. We were doing, we basically did 2 songs a week for like a month or 2 or however long it was. And really just focused on, kind of making the bass parts something different than just following the unison guitar riffs, That's kind of in the past. The bass players always seem to complain about not being heard. And the reason why that happens is because if you're just following the guitar riffs, if you just turn that up, all you're doing is adding low-end frequency to the same thing that you already have.
Yeah.
So it creates mud, and now it takes away from the chainsaw of the guitar, to me, and that's the explanation for why the bass wasn't as prominent on some of the early albums. So with this, it was a technique that Jim Morris taught us from Morrisound, where he was like, you got to write different bass parts, instead of just keeping the melody the same as what the guitar is doing. So that was kind of our focus with this album was, to really make the bass stand out a little more and doing different things than just, following the drums more and almost having a separate riff going on. Like, if you ever heard I'm sure Deaf Human.
Yep.
Have you ever heard the bass and drum tracks to that?
Just on their own? No.
Yeah. Well, if you buy the expanded edition or whatever they released a number of years ago, there's some bonus tracks. You can find them on YouTube.
Okay.
But it's like a couple songs off that album where it's just Sean Ryder and Steve DiGiorgio with no other, no Chuck, no guitars, no nothing, no vocals. And it's like it's like those songs are like totally different songs. You know what I mean? And so we wanted to capture that vibe to where it's like a whole different, it's like going underwater and seeing a whole different sea underneath,
Yeah.
And we kind of wanted to focus more on that and bring the bass tracks alive where you could actually turn them up and hear them. And so that was kind of one of the main priorities with this last album.
Right.
So then we got into the whole artwork thing. That turned into a fiasco because, our singer's an artist, but at the same time, we kind of I came up with the concept of the idea was that it was the devil blowing dust out of his hand, and the dust becomes planets, and it's kind of going towards a wormhole. That was like the original concept. And so Mike did a version of that, and then we were going to get somebody to hand paint it, like a Seagrave type guy. And in the meantime, we had this guy, Zbig Noob. What's his last name? I can't remember. Bialik? Yeah, Sabinsky Bialik. He's the guy that does the Ghost, the band Ghost. He Paradise Lost cover artwork. And if you see, like, even the Watain, like the hand, kind of like the black and white, that's kind of his style or whatever. And he approached me about doing the artwork, and I gave him my idea. I gave him what Mike did as far as the sketch, and he was going to do it. And it just never got done. I won't get too hard on him, but basically it just took forever, and we never got. It was like we're basically waiting. Everything's done except for this artwork. Come on, bro. But it just never came. And in the meantime, I'm working with Pete Sandoval and Terrorizer. We're rehearsing, and some guy is sending, like, he had a deal with some Indonesian guy about doing some T-shirts or whatever. It was just a small little thing. He did like 30 shirts or something, but he came up with some cool original artwork for this T-shirt. And I was like, and this is for Terrorizer we're talking about, and so like, he's like, oh man, we could use this for the album cover. This is good, And so that's what we ended up doing. I think he beefed it up a little more, but it's more or less the Terrorizer album that we just put out. That was like the T-shirt design that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Where he was like, oh man, this guy's good. And then Pete suggested, dude, because I was telling Pete about my problems with this other guy with Monstrosity cover, I was like, we're sitting here stuck in limbo because of this stupid artwork, you know what I mean? I don't know, I don't have a Dan Seagrave on every hand here where I could just reach out to him, you know what I mean? Because we want to, the artwork's a very important thing, it's not something you just want to skimp on, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, Pete suggested using his name Timble, and he's like, here, give him your idea, and let's, at least see what he can do, So I did that. And like 3 days later, he came back with what is the album cover for the past existence. The guy's a kid, and I know he didn't have it. It's not like he had that sitting in his back pocket for 2 years and just pulled it out. My idea, I know, you know what I mean? It's like,
wow.
The guy's talented. He just bam, 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 came up with it like that. So, I was blown away. So I actually had him do a bunch of T-shirt design. I got T-shirt designs in the can right now, that we haven't put out yet.
Sweet.
Just because the guy's so good and he's quick, and it's like stuff we're happy with, and guy's killer. So we dodged a big bullet on that one, and then it kind of all came together with Metal Blade and working the whole deal with them. We had a 3-album deal with the guy Michael Trigger I was talking about that was with Nuclear Blast originally. In the meantime, had moved on to Metal Blade, Europe. And we did Rise to Power with Metal Blade, like basically the same deal where it was Conquest in America, Metal Blade in Europe. And I was dealing with Michael Trigger for the Europe part of it. And then, I don't know, 40 years later, or whatever it was, we did Spiritual Apocalypse and all that. And we had, basically Metal Blade had one more option. And because it had taken us so long, 11 years, Michael Trigger had died in the meantime, which was a bummer. And so when we went to Metal Blade, we're done, we're ready for it. It was like, oh, we didn't even know we had a deal. What are you even talking about? They were like, so we had to go, when we said, well, we're giving you, then they heard the album and they were like, they were meeting, like, yeah, we want this. So it all worked out. And it was just one of those things where it took more time, so that was kind of, it all kind of snowballed, into taking so long. That's the 11-year discrepancy, that's
because you guys released the first single way before the album was even coming out or whatever for like quite a while.
That would have been June. I think what they did is they did 3 singles a week. There were 3 singles, one every week. And that was in, like, towards the end of June. And then the album came out in September. So like 3 months in advance, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, like, where you're just dying for people to hear this stuff. And, they're out there complaining, where is this out? It's been, forever. What's going on? And meanwhile, it's like I want to just put it out there so you can hear it, but I gotta hold it because I want it to. You want everything to time right. You don't want to put it out too early. You don't want to put it out too late. You want to give yourself time to promote everything. And luckily, everything. It seems like the fans were really happy once it came. It was kind of like almost a surprise. It came out of nowhere.
It was.
A new single,
It really was because I ended up seeing if like one person post it, and literally I jumped on it. I'm like, okay, what else is going on here? Like, what's happening? Monstrosity's throwing singles out now. It's been a while. What's up? And the buzz just like it steamrolled.
And the production, we were real happy with it. So it was like, it's nice when you can, have something proud, kind of, slam everybody with, out of the blue.
Where'd you end up recording that?
We did that in Sanford, Florida, with a guy named Jason Sukov, who was an old friend of ours. I met him. He was still a kid when I met him. I met him on that Broken Hope Vader tour in '97. We played in a place called the L&G in New London, Connecticut. And he was there, and we ended up talking with him, like, before the show, and that's where I met him. And I'd see him around, I don't know where, maybe online or whatever, but I'd see him here and there. But I saw him at a Brass Mug show, I think, and he did a project called Capernaum with my bass player, and the Trivium singer sang on it.
Oh.
And it was cool. It's kind of, check it out if you ever get a chance. It's Capernaum, and it's kind of like Suffocation riffs, real crazy, a lot of craziness going on. And it just had good production, and he says, hey, man, I'm doing that in my backyard, blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, even, like, he had, like, Tom Morris from Morris Sound, like, come over and, like, help him with these acoustics in the studio, and he, got some help from them as far as getting set up big time. And he did the Trivium album, which was kind of his claim to fame, I guess, for, basically Trivium took off the Roadrunner, and then all of a sudden Roadrunner was sending him all this work of these new metal bands, and he kind of became the new metal producer.
Wow.
Doing a lot of those kind of bands. I don't even know the names of the bands. I didn't keep up. But,
yep.
He got a lot of work from it. His studio just kind of got better and better and better. He was doing Cannibal. He was doing Deicide. And it, it's definitely comparable to what Morrisound was doing. And we did our Rise to Power album with him. And that was, we were still kind of in the guinea pig status with him at that point. It was before he kind of took off. So Rise to Power was a good one, but it could have been better. It was one of those things where he was still kind of learning his craft a little bit on that one. But, and with Spiritual Apocalypse, Morrisound was, it's like 20 minutes down the road from me, you know what I mean? Whereas going over to Orlando and Sanford area, it's, it's a little bit of a drive, and it just made more sense to do Spiritual at Morrisound, even though it was, I don't know. And basically, so after that, Morrisound closed down, so we knew we were going to have to figure something else out anyway. And it just happened to work out that, like, the productions he was doing over there were just totally, they just have a hugeness to the production, that we like. And it was kind of a different way of doing the drum. Like, we spent a week on just the drums, and, like, most of that was just getting the tones. We spent, like, 4 days getting tones, changing heads, and listening to that. Recording a song with these cymbals, and then switching them out and moving the cymbals, and then recording some more, and then you just sit there and listen back and forth between the two and just, figure out which is the better sound. And okay, now we're going to do it again, but we're going to use these toms instead of these other Yamahas. We're going to use these toms, and just going through and, like, A-being back and forth and tuning. It was like way more.
Wow.
Like normally at Morrisound, we go in, we spend 6 hours getting the tones, and then we're off to track one,
Right.
And the drums are done within 2 days, 3 days. That's kind of normally how it goes. Whereas this time we spent a week just on the drums, and like I said, most of that was just getting the sounds and the tones. So that was a whole nother, it was very tedious, but at the same time, it was kind of lax too. It was like the way we worked the deal. It was like, you know, we weren't totally, like, it wasn't like we were on the clock and, oh my God, we got so much time to do this and you have to do it within this time or you're, you know, that's it, you know. So it was a case of, you know, it was a little more relaxed, even though it was tedious and kind of like, you know, I won't say boring, but whatever. It was just a lot more tedium going on, but at the same time, you know, the end result speaks for itself. So.
Oh, it really does. It really does. So how has Metal Blade been with you through this whole process then?
They did okay. I don't want to get too involved with, you know, talking about that too much, but they did good. Yeah. Basically, the issue was that, you know, they're more focused on the downloads and the vinyls now, you know what I mean? Whereas people were having problems getting product in America, so that was the issue.
All right.
Gotcha. Finish it up.
So is Monstrosity...
We worked the deal where we reissued Rise to Power and Spiritual. They ended up doing vinyl editions, and really, they did a good job on that, you know, especially the European portion of it. You know, they really, like, they put posters and did all this kind of stuff, and, you know, splattered vinyls and all these different editions and stuff. So, you know, the fans definitely should be happy.
Right. So, are you going to be touring at all after all this, I guess?
We did the one tour of Europe in May of last year. And the idea was that, you know, okay, you know, basically it was, you know, the tour didn't get announced until like a month and a half before we went over there. So it was kind of, you know, it wasn't promoted as good as it could be. And the idea was that we were going to, you know, come back with a bigger, a more prestigious lineup of a tour, you know, with the bigger, you know, kind of more of a package, let's say. And unfortunately, now with the, you know, that was supposed to happen in October, and now with this virus thing, the Terrorizer tour got pushed back from April, so now that tour is supposedly in October, which was when that Monstrosity tour was going to take place, and that pushed the Monstrosity tour back. So I'm thinking at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, try to get the next album written.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, I don't want to say what's happened. That's what my goal is, you know,
sure.
But no promises, as things always take longer than what we,
Of course. That's all you can do, right?
Yeah, but we got a lot of material already, and we're not going to, you know, it's funny because people actually complained that the album was too long. You know, they were like, oh, 50-something minutes, it's too long. And I didn't even think about it, you know, it's, how that happened is because, you know, like even the third album, Dark Purity, that album's like 53 minutes. Rise to Power was like, you know, 50-something minutes with actual music. There's like a whole ending thing.
Right.
Spiritual Apocalypse, same thing. It's 50 minutes. You know, it's just because CDs came along and you could stretch out, you know, longer than a vinyl album.
Yep.
So bands started doing albums that were longer, you know, and that we kind of just, you know, under that premise, you know, we had, you know, made an album 50 minutes long, you know, so,
yep.
So with the next album, we won't make it quite as long because, you know, we'll make it a little more punchy and a little more direct. And, you know, another thing was I was thinking, you know, it's been 11 years. Let's give these guys something, you know, a little bit extra for the, you know, the long wait.
Exactly.
And so with this album, we're going to put it out a little quicker, and it'll be a little more direct, probably 36 minutes, somewhere around there, what the goal is.
Oh, wow.
I've already got, like, I got 5 or 6 songs we're working on. Mark has a song. Plus I have riffs for days. I mean,
right.
Days. Yeah.
So, okay, let's get off the Monstrosity track. How did you get involved with Sandoval and all that?
Well, I knew him back. I met him in '88, actually, at a Morbid Angel show. And
just gonna grab a beer.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would see him around at various shows, and we would, we'd hang out. Actually, we knew a couple girls in Tampa that we'd kind of go over to their house, and they'd be partying over there. And, I don't know. We would just see him at different parties. Or he was just one of those things. Pretty much any show that was going on, he'd be there. So I've known him forever. Let's see, around 99, 2000 era. I didn't see him as much through those years, like 2004 to even like 2013. Like from about 2000 to 2013, I didn't see him too much just because he was doing his thing and I was doing my thing. And he wasn't out and about as much as he used to be. But it had been a while, but I ran into him at the Brass Mug I think it was a Beer Factory show. And he was just, he'd come back from, that's right, he moved to Spain. So he had just come back from Spain. He was sober. He'd found God and all that stuff. And so he was real clear-headed, and it was like, wow, man, Pete's doing good, it was cool. And so I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? What's going on with you? He's like, oh, nothing, man. Just, hanging out at the house, not really playing drums. I was like, oh, man. He's like, oh, we should jam sometime, man. If you got some time, man. He's like, sure, man. So I went back and dusted off the Terrorizer riffs. I had learned that album in '94. I remember, I went through a period where, in '94, where I was just playing guitar, constantly. Just, all day long, just riffing out. So I, learned, I learned that album, and there was another album I learned that was just constantly playing, plus writing the Monstrosity and doing all that stuff. I was just playing constantly. But I really hadn't played it since then, I did my submission project. I kind of brought it back, and I had Tony Moreno. I don't know if you know who he is, but he played drums. He would come over, and he would, it was just something for us fun to do. But we would jam after World Obliteration, stuff like that.
Well, that album is just unbelievable. It's fun.
Yeah, it's just a fun album to play.
Yep.
So anyway, 2013, I was like, hey man, so I want to come over and jam, So I brought my amp over, and we went through, a bunch of those Terrorizer songs. It went really good. And then it just kind of went, oh, what are you doing next week? Do it again? Oh yeah, sure. So, and then it just, it became obvious. It was like, oh man, this is going good. And he still had his lineup out in California. He was basically the singer from the second album.
Yep.
And he had brought in his wife to play guitar. And his wife was on the third album, Hordes of Zombies. She actually plays guitar on that. So it was the singer from the second album with his wife and Pete with a lineup of Terrorizer for that third album. And so he was still Pete was telling me he was going to have to go back out to LA. They were going to do some, jamming or whatever out there. And in the meantime, we were jamming, and I ended up bringing Sam in. Sam had been in Monstrosity before, so that's where I knew him. And we started with a backyard party. So we started in June of 2013. In September of that year, we did our first little backyard party show kind of thing. It was a free event. And it was just something fun to do. And then right after that, and at the time we weren't even calling it Terrorizer. It was Sandoval, Harrison, Molina is what we were calling it. And basically, he just wasn't talking to the people in California anymore. They weren't calling, they weren't talking, there was nothing happening. And he's got me, I'm 15 minutes down the road from him. And Sam lives like, an hour and a half away. So we're jamming every week. He's got a band that's right there in Florida. And we got approached by a guy named Gutter. He's from Jersey, and he was doing Jersey Death Fest. And so he booked us to do that show. And, they were pushing us to, they wanted to put the Terrorizer logo on the T-shirts, So they were pushing for the Terrorizer. Come on, man, let's call it Terrorizer, man, come on, And I think Pete just finally gave in. He was like, yeah, all right, let's do it, because he just didn't see, I don't think he really saw a future with the California crew because they just, they're so far away.
Right.
And he's got this going right here, and it's going good. It just made more sense. So we changed. That's when he came out. We changed it from the Sandoval, Harrison, Molina. We changed it to Terrorizer, and then right not too long after that, we ended up talking with the Morbid Angel manager, Gunter Ford, who Pete had dealt with, obviously, for years and years and years with Morbid Angel, about doing something for us. So he did, and basically we ended up doing a bunch of festival shows in Europe, and he's been our manager ever since. So that's been one of the cool things, is actually having some management and doing that. And he's actually taken over management for Monstrosity now too in the meantime, just because we work together really good.
Perfect.
So yeah, it kind of worked out for Monstrosity too, And we did the Caustic Attack album. We actually did a 4-song demo first with Terrorizer, and but we didn't release it. I did like a what do you call it? It was like a playthrough video,
Okay.
It's like a playthrough demo. I have a video. It's a video of like 4 corners, of each of us doing our parts of the demo live, and that was the demo. And it's produced pretty good, but it was just a case that we just never released it. And then we got the deal with, it was called The End Records.
Okay.
They were called The End.
Yep.
And so we ended up recording a pre-production, did all the songs on that one. And we spent a lot, I have to hand it to Pete, man. He really stepped up. And, we did it the old school way. We got in the garage and really, shedded it out, man, and just totally wood shedded everything. Instead of, a lot of bands these days, they just do it over the internet and they come up with whatever, and that's the album, and they kind of just, go through the motions, you could say. But, with Pete was really a good sport about, because I have my visions, you know what I mean? I kind of wanted to take, this second Terrorizer and the third Terrorizer albums both have like a lot of triggered drums, and Pete's kind of became more known for the triggered drum sound, and with Caustic Attack, I kind of wanted to take him back to that World Downfall, more natural sounding drums.
Yeah.
And the old tuning of the guitars, and just that older kind of, so I had my vision of, as a fan myself, you know what I mean, of what I wanted, and what, it's kind of selfish on my end, but whatever, I wanted, kind of bring it back to what I thought it should be, and because, they down-tuned the guitars so low on the second and third album. I mean, there's some good songs, but it's just not the Terrorizer that I like.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't
Totally.
that World Downfall kind of thing. So I kind of wanted, with Caustic Attack, I wanted to kind of go back and capture that, but maybe, kind of create a good balance with that old World Downfall and kind of bring in the modern too, where it's just tighter and faster, because Pete's, I got him on playing with the click track, and it's just like, it just tightened his playing up big time, it's like, it really, because he's got something to follow, and it's like, I can definitely say that these are some of his fastest drum tracks ever, on Caustic Attack, just because we got, we can see the speed limit, we can see the BPM, he's doing triplets at 155, it's like,
yeah.
230 is kind of his average speed, you know, like on the album, you know, it's kind of where he sits comfortably, you know what I mean? That's his, like his,
right.
Yeah, that's like pretty, you know, when you're talking about 1 foot blast beats, you know, at 230, I mean, it's like, you know, there's kids out there that can go 260, 280, and then the whole, you know,
sure,
whatever,
but you're doing the like the cheat double bass blast though, right?
Right. Whatever, you know, I mean, there's guys, you know, the Nile guy can do it at 260, 280, whatever. It's pretty impressive. Derek Roddy's of the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, holy.
That's you know, that's getting in the band room and just sitting there with a practice pad, and just totally nerding out on just speed, you know what I mean? To get it to that. Whereas, you know, we're trying to, like, you know, keep it organic and make it it's still music, you know what I mean? And songs, and you know.
So you got Pete excited again, is what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. He definitely stepped up to the plate, and, like, you know, I kind of, because, you know, I was telling him what I was doing with the Monstrosity, with going over to that studio in Sanford and getting, you know, telling him, you know, how we're getting real, you know, these are real drum sounds. This ain't just samples that we're, you know.
Yeah, you're not pro tooling the sounds.
Right. I mean, it's still, you know, recorded digitally, because that's just what happens this day and age. You know what I mean? But it's definitely going the extra mile to make it more natural sounding, you know, and keeping it not so clicky and digital, like trickery or whatever. You know?
Yep. Because grindcore is not supposed to be triggery and clickety.
No, exactly. And so I was kind of telling him, you know, where I was coming from on that, and basically talked him into, you know, checking out the studio over there, because you know, originally we were just going to go to Punchy's studio and kind of just bang it out, but I talked him into going over there to Sanford and checking the studio out and seeing what was going on over there. And so we drove over there and he checked it out, and he worked with me. Like I said, you know, he got on board with what I was trying to get him to do, and it worked out. You know, I'm really happy. So both the Monstrosity and the Terrorizer albums, I'm proud. You know, those are the pinnacle of my work as far as I'm concerned right now. You know, both of them. You know, because the Terrorizer showcases my guitar riffs. You know, those are all my riffs, and you know, it's the production's just astounding, and on both records. So, you know, it's like, I can't complain at all, you know. And Jason Sukoff's an awesome dude. It was totally, you know, he's a hilarious dude. It's just fun working with him always. You know, I love that guy.
Right on. And it's just the fact that you're playing Terrorizer tunes, right? Like, that album came out in '89, right? Like, that is crazy. And just to think that you're able to play with the guy who's, you know, like you said, After World Obliteration and all these World Downfall tunes, and you're making riffs with the guy that, you know, that made that album. Like, that's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, Gene from Angel Corpse, he was like, man, you did whatever all of us wanted to do, you know, but you did it.
No, it's true though, because I mean, like, everybody that talks about whether it's like your favorite album in death metal or grindcore or whatever, and like that World Downfall is like #1 amongst everybody across the board. Like, it doesn't matter. So, like, that's cool, man. And so it obviously feels.
I'm a drummer, you know. A lot of guitar players are probably jealous of the fact that the drummer. What's this drummer doing over here playing guitar? You know? I should have that gig, you know.
Yeah, right, totally. But it's fucking Pete Sandoval. Like, just leave it alone. That's crazy. That's cool.
It works too, because we're both drummers. We speak the same language. You know, I know what he's doing. I know, you know, we relate like that, because I can, you know, like, hey man, I can see whatever's happening or whatever's not happening or whatever it is, and tell him, or, you know, he can talk to me and say, hey, no, we're not locking. You know what I mean? It's just,
totally.
As drummers, we click like that, you know, because we understand where the time is. We both understand timing in a way that guitar players don't. You know?
Yep. No, totally. So I'm assuming Terrorizer is just going to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's see what happens with this virus. You know, I don't know what's going on. We actually there's still like, I don't know, is it 5 or 6 songs that were from that session that haven't been released. I don't know if anything's gonna ever happen with those. So we got that in the can, and they're kind of some of like a couple of them. There's some straight up songs, but then there's some of the more experimental stuff. There's like basically we recorded a bunch of extra songs and picked the 10 best. You know, kind of was the thinking. 14 best is what it ended up being, but kind of picked the, you know, the cream of the crop, and then you know, like some of the more, like we have one song called Torture that's like, it's kind of has that Where the Slime Lives feel to it, you know what I mean? Where it's like not really Terrorizer, but it's something, you know, that it's Pete, you know what I mean? It's like that. Kind of that, you know, it's his influences from Morbid Angel, you know.
Yep.
So we felt that didn't really like probably sit with the Terrorizer album. You know, we wanted to keep it. And if anything, I would like more focus. You know, kind of even go more grind for the next album. You know, just like instead of trying to, I kind of did a balance with Caustic Attack, where it was like, you know, that old school, just straight up grind, World Downfall, and then like maybe song like Crisis, where it's like kind of more death metal, if you will.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, you got some
hands.
speed picking in some of those riffs in that album there for sure.
Like it's that Rapture drum beat, the triplet, you know, which Terrorizer never did the triplet blast beat. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of the Morbid Angel blast, the triplet blast, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, kind of that thing. And so Crisis kind of has some of that, where it's like, you know, my riffing for Monstrosity with the Morbid Angel triplet blast kind of thing. So, you know, it's not exactly Terrorizer, you know, 100% whatever. So maybe with the next Terrorizer, I would keep things maybe a little more, like, you know, focused on just being completely grindcore and like,
Right.
you know, and that. Totally.
Right on. I don't know. I guess we're gonna kind of wrap this up. It's been like an hour and a half with you, man. This has been amazing, dude. Like, thank you very much. You got any last words to let everybody know what's going on with Mr. Lee Harrison?
New Monstrosity eventually. I got my solo project, my rock band, where I play all the instruments and sing. That's kind of like do like a classic rock thing without the total glam, like no glam stuff, but just a straight old school rock, you know, 70s rock.
Oh, sweet. I fucking love 70s rock. Like, are we talking like the proto metal, like Sir Lord Baltimore and Blood Rock and all that kind of stuff?
It's the old stuff, you know, the straight up guitar rock of, you know, the 70s.
Cool.
Kind of more of that influence. And then I'm planning on releasing like the project I did with Crimson Glory singer Midnight.
Oh.
I don't know if you know about that, but before he died, unfortunately he passed away. But if you ever heard the Crimson Glory stuff, it's like power metal, but like with really like kind of like killer Jeff Tate type singing, just really like operatic and whatever. And I worked with him before he died. It was kind of more of a folk album, to be honest, but it was a case of where like I was like, we released a bunch of stuff where I was like the band on certain songs. Like I'd be play the bass, drums, keys, guitar, everything, you know, and then he would sing on top of it. Wow. And then in a different song, a guy named Matt Laporte, who plays with John Oliva from Sabotage, he died too, unfortunately. Long story. But he, you know, certain songs he would do the backing band and things like that, or certain stuff. It was just a total collaboration. And there was another guy, Phil, involved. He had a hammered dulcimer. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like basically playing strings with a little hammer, like these little stuff. And that was totally, you know, it was just totally left field from what I do in Monstrosity. You know?
Wow.
And that's a cool project if you ever get a chance to check out.
So we can find links to all this, obviously.
Yeah, it's all on like the Conquest Music website. You can see that stuff.
Cool.
And basically, we did a bunch of covers and stuff, and like basically, I got a whole discography out of the guy before he passed away. Like he was a big drinker and stuff, and so like he kind of, I won't say he knew he was gonna pass pass away, but he definitely like planned for it. Let's put it that way. And so we ended up getting a big, recording of just a bunch of stuff, like a whole discography out of the guy before he passed away. And we released the 3 CD set of his original music already. We did that in 2014.
Wow.
And I have a covers album that I'm going to release next. I think that's the plan. So,
Wow.
it's just honor. The guy was a phenomenal singer back in the day, like in the late 80s. If you ever heard Transcendence with Crimson Glory, I mean, that's like really like next level vocals, But anyway, long story longer, I got that stuff coming out.
Right on.
And I got some other projects I'm working on. Work with another singer, and we're going to do some of that. Work with a keyboard guy. He's called Black Rifle Coalition, and went down to Fort Lauderdale. I went to Bon Jovi's brother's studio and did a Cure cover over there.
Cool. What Cure
really
song? What Cure song?
It's called Burn. It's from the Crow soundtrack.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not a huge Cure fan. I got a buddy who loves them, and I hear him all the time just because he's always playing them. But it was just something fun to do, and he's got a little project that he wants to do, and so we work on that on the side. And another guy named Spirit that I'm working with. He's a vocalist, and doing a little project with him, and plus my little Poison project, plus the Monstrosity, plus the Terrorizer, and yeah, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, man. Well, that's good that you're busy though. It's just because you love music.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
I'm a lifer, man.
Damn straight, man. Honestly, like I remember, going back to the early days when I first heard, Ozzy, Iron Maiden, all that kind of shit, and there was something that just like it bites you, and you can't shake it. And then when I realized that, wow, I could actually play guitar myself or bass or, start getting involved somehow, that it just got even worse. And then it just steamrolled after that. And 30 some odd years later now, we're still trying to do shit. I'm still making some music here and there. We're making videos. We're doing all kinds of stuff, right? Like you can't stop.
Right. Got the Tardy Brothers project too, the Obituary Boys. I did that was 2012. I was jamming guitar with, it's their side band, the Obituary guys.
Right. And, yeah. What is that? Oh, that's right.
It's called the Tardy Brothers, and they did an album, and I learned all those songs and was going over there and jamming with them, and I ended up playing guitar at Obituary for a minute. We did some South American shows. I was second guitarist for Obituary. And then, like last year, I filled in for Donald on drums, so it was like I can claim that I played guitar and drums in Obituary. So that's definitely fun and cool. But hopefully, hopefully eventually once this virus thing clears over, and Obituary's been busy and they're off doing their thing, and they're real successful right now, so they don't have time for the side bands, but. Eventually, hopefully, I definitely would like to record something with them before it's all over with, because those guys are awesome. I love those guys, and it's just, it doesn't have to be Obituary, or, it could be their side band. It doesn't even have to be anything. I just want to record with them some point, doing something just because they're cool bros, man.
Totally. Right on.
Yeah, that's another project on the list,
Well, you can never have enough, though. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, and it's cool just work, it's kind of one of those things where, like, I saw it, years in advance, like, even though it was so far off and far removed, you know what I mean, that, it just kind of like, it's one of those things where dreams come true, same with Terrorizer, it's like one of those things where you could kind of see it in a certain reality, and sure enough, it came to pass, you know what I mean? Yeah,
oh, totally. Well, you just get that stomach, that gut feeling, right? And you're like, okay, all right, I'm excited here. This is good.
Getting to work with people that you admire, working with Midnight from Crimson Glory, working with the Obituary guys, working with Pete from Terrorizer, Morbid Angel, you know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Fucking right.
But, you know, it's stuff you gotta make happen. It doesn't happen on its own, you know. You gotta take a chance sometime and, you know.
Well, you live in a good area too, where they all live, though.
Yeah. They're my buddies. They're my bros. So.
Totally. Well, yeah. I mean, you've grown up in the whole scene, anyways, so you kind of just everybody just.
Morristown, you know, Morristown was that home base. You know, everybody was going to Morristown. Having that studio there really looked. You know, those guys were awesome, man.
Yeah.
Just everybody there kind of brought out the music. You know.
Unbelievable. Well, like you said, it's a hub, so everybody got excited at the same time, and then you just started getting everybody coming in going, oh yeah, that's right, you did that, yeah, that's right, you did that. Oh man, we're all doing the same thing now, and we're all working at the same studio, and then everybody, like you said, just become friends, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you very much, Lee, for hanging out for the part 2 here, because we just had to finish our conversations. And yeah, kudos to you, and hope you stay safe, and everybody's good down there.
Tell me a little bit before we go. Tell me about this movie, or what's the story with that?
Oh, the Growl. Okay, well, we started this about, I'm going to say about 3 years ago now. I approached, I go to a lot of horror conventions, and I just deal with the horror community. So I have a few friends in distribution companies. So, going to one of the shows, one of my friends working one of the booths, I'm like, you know, I see the Vakken Festival, I see Thor, if you remember Thor from back in the day too, right? So this company was dealing with the distribution of some of these documentaries. So I'm like, you know, our friend Doug Brown, who did the Slave to the Grind, the grindcore one that just came out, I'm asking my buddy, and I'm like, so how come nobody's doing a death metal documentary? Isn't anybody approaching you about doing a death metal documentary? And he's pretty much like, nope, nobody's said a word. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to stamp it right now, and let's try to work something out so that when we finish it, that hopefully we can, you know, work something out at the end, because unfortunately nobody gives advances anymore. It's usually when you're done, so you put all the work in first, right? So that's why it's kind of taken us a little bit longer, I guess. I mean, about 3 years or so. But I'm hoping that by the end of at least September, we're going to hit the Quebec Death Fest, and we're going to sit down with like Cam Lee and a few others that are coming up. So hopefully we can kind of settle ourselves by then, and then just get into the editing of it all. But pretty much the documentary, just kind of want to just do the, you know, the history, I guess, but really get the stories from, because we've sat down with Tom G. Warrior, we sat down with Jeff Becerra, and you know, the guys from Morbid Saint, and we're going to sit down with Cam Lee, and just try to get, you know, where the origins are of this growl, and then the blast beats and all this kind of stuff, but go through the fanzines and the tape trading and everything like that, that kind of kept it going even during the 90s, when, like you said, death metal was doing nothing, because unfortunately alternative and new metal and everything was the cool thing to do at the time. But in the background, you know, shit was still going down, and you guys were still putting out albums and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of want to hit like those angles also, and just show everybody that death metal never left. Just because Ace Ventura brought Cannibal Corpse doesn't mean that was like the be-all, end-all. There was a lot of shit going on in the background, and myself being involved in editorial work and all this kind of stuff, get down to the bottom of things and hang out with you guys and just try to figure out some stories. So that's pretty much it, man. And just show the true stories, right? I like, you know, we all know about Deicide and Obituary and all these other stuff, but what about like those cool stories in the background that was going on when, you know, death metal was at its peak, and then it was at its lowest, and then it came back, and then it was at its lowest, and that kind of stuff. So I kind of want to try to get some different angles, and like I said, hopefully by September we can finish filming and start editing.
Excellent, man. All right, man. Cool.
So.
Well, don't forget my story, man.
Oh, damn straight, man. Fucking Monstrosity is a huge part of this, man. This is fantastic. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, brother.
All right. Well, we'll
talk soon, man.
Yeah, dude. Take it easy, bro.
You good?
Ciao. Oh, man. Well, wasn't that a fucking awesome interview there? Mr. Lee Harrison there of Monstrosity, Terrorizer, and every other project. Well, I think it's time to end this stream here because it's my beautiful lady's birthday. Happy 40th. Happy 40th. I don't know. Thank you, everybody. So tune in tomorrow when we talk to Chris Lytle of Insanity and see what's going on with those guys, because there's some new announcements going on. And yeah, we just need to sit down and chat with Mr. Chris, because Insanity's been around for quite a while too, since the 90s. So just try to get all aspects, right? Like, I mean, there's so much happened within the scene, and you know, everybody knows about the big bands, but what about the second tier bands and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's where kind of that's where my hangouts were a lot too, because I've always been a fan of just not being in contact with everybody, but at least, you know, writing a letter and getting a letter back kind of thing, right? And I just love this scene, man. And I love everybody here. So everybody stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. And we appreciate you hanging out, everybody.